Hey guys, welcome back to another art video. This video is going to be a water-based marker comparison. So the first marker I have is from Hampton Arts. The next three are from Recollections. And then we have Marvy Le Plume, a distress marker, and the new Zig Art and Graphic twin markers. And I just want to say that I will not be doing a speed paint of like different colorings of these markers because I discovered when I was testing them out that they have the exact same ink. The only difference is the nibs on them, so that's pretty much what I'm going to be covering. So the first marker is from Hampton Art, and I haven't seen these sold in sets. I usually, whenever I see these, I only see them sold individually. So there's only like one brown, one blue, one red. That's pretty much all I've seen. I haven't seen like a full complete set of these, so I don't know if I also looked online to see if I could find a color chart and I didn't find anything close to it. So but the nibs are actually like they're quite unique. So this one is a stiff, really fine brush nib. I don't like how the color doesn't match the tip because this is like a brownish, but then when I was coloring with it, it looks black. And then there's like a medium fine tip. So the next brand is by Recollections, and it seems like they can't like decide which marker design to go by, because this first one looks like a replica of the distress marker. It looks exactly the same. It's got the same tip design. The font is different, but also like the tips are slightly similar, but so this is like a stiff brush tip, only like the very tip of it is flexible. But I do really like how inky the distress markers are, and since these really well like replicate the design of a distress marker, I still really like these. But so the finer tip is like a medium fine tip. I don't like these too much because they're not as fine as I would like them to be. You can actually get a finer line if you just use the very tip of the brush rather than using the tip of the medium tip. Alright, and then the next marker I found was this one. It was on clearance, so I got it, but it has this stiff brush tip. It's slightly flexible, not as flexible as the distress marker tip though, and then it has a really fine like pen tip. I really like this pen tip because it's much more fine and it allows you to get into a whole lot more detail. And then the last one I found was this Recollections marker. This marker actually replicates like the design of a Marvy Le Plume. It looks exactly the same, and the tips are actually exactly the same too. But this brush tip feels like it's very like it is very stiff. It doesn't flex at all. But it also feels a bit dry, which makes me think that like it creates more streaks when you're trying to color with it. And then the other tip is this really fine pen tip, which I like a whole lot. It's very similar to their previous design pen tip, but I do like this one more because it feels a whole lot sturdier. But yeah, I still like these tips better. So I think this one is the most recent. I think they stopped selling these ones because I've seen them in like department stores like Ross and TJ Maxx, and usually when those stores are holding any product, that means they're going like out of stock and like out of production. So I think these two are the older brands, although I have still seen these at Michael's. They aren't available in that many colors though. I think the most colors I've seen is about 7 or 8 different colors, like mostly the primary colors. but not a whole lot. And then these markers come in 36 different colors. It comes in 3 sets of 12. So they have the pastels, the dusky, and the primary set. The next one up is my favorite distress marker. These markers come in 49 different colors, and it's very similar to the Recollections, but I think the Recollections marker was trying to copy distress markers because they didn't come. The Recollections marker that looked like this came in only 30 colors with including their blender pen, which I don't like. I don't like using any of the water-based blender pens, but I'll get into that later. So it has the same brush tip though, but the other tip is much finer. It's my favorite plasticky fine pen tip that lets you get into a lot of detail. The only thing I don't like about this specific brand is that they only make 49 different colors. So here's all the colors for the distress markers. As you can see, they're mostly muted tones. There are like a few 3 or 4 like bright tones, but mostly it's muted, which is kind of a good thing because a lot of water-based markers don't come in either muted or pastels. They usually have a shortage of either muted or pastel colors, but they have a lot of those bright primary and secondary colors. So that could be like a good color selection. The next marker is by Marvy Le Plume, and just like the Recollections marker, it has the same very stiff brush nib, and I feel like the stiffer brush nibs, it's harder, like you get more streaks with it, and it also makes the paper pill a whole lot more when you're trying to layer and blend, because like it's not just the saturation of the paper that makes the paper pill, it's also the friction of the nib like dragging on the paper. So the more you drag, like the stiffer the nib is, and the more you're trying to apply the ink on the paper, it will start to move around the fibers. So I feel like softer tips would layer and blend a bit better. Also like lay down color a bit better, because this looks really streaky when I'm using these different brush nibs. But something I really love about this marker is of course the little pen tip, and this marker comes in a total of 108 colors excluding the blender pen. They have a blender pen, but excluding that they have 108 different colors, so that's the widest variety of any water-based marker I've seen. But the quality of this pen is slightly mediocre because some of the pens that I ordered came with like dried up tips. Like you can see there's like white, the tip is white and it won't give any ink, but if I do tip it to the side then it does. It's just the tip that somehow didn't like absorb any of the ink, so it's got dried out. Also some of them, when I got them, the plastic broke off from here and this tip just flew out, so and it won't stay back because the plastic over here cracked open. So in terms of quality, these pens are pretty bad, but in terms of color range, they're pretty good. And the last marker is the Zig Art and Graphic Twin Marker. I've seen, when I was researching water-based markers, I've seen a marker that looks exactly like this. It's called Staedtler Mars Graphic 3000, and it looks exactly like this, except it even has like the same font on it, but it's just that the barrel is blue. But I've seen the tips and it's the same flexible brush tip along with the medium tip. But yeah, so something I just discovered is that it does still get streaky though when you're layering. That's probably because the nature of water is that it will like stay on the surface and it will dry a whole lot faster. Alcohol-based markers usually seep into the page, so, and that like prolongs the time that it takes for the ink to dry. But since like all these markers are water-based, they seem to like lay on pretty streaky, for lack of a better word. But But something this marker is better at than other markers is that it would layer better because the ink doesn't, like the nib doesn't scratch at the paper at all. It lays down really nice and smoothly. It almost feels like a Copic marker. So that's, like, I'm guessing if I use this on my hot press watercolor paper, it would not pill because this marker doesn't, the nib doesn't like drag on the paper as much as my other markers do, like my distress markers were doing when I was trying to do the watercolor paper comparison. So yeah. So once again, here is the color chart for the Zig Art and Graphic Twin. I really like their pastel selection. They have a lot of really nice bright colors that you don't see a whole lot in water-based markers. So yeah, I do like that. But as you can see, in terms of muted tones, there's not a whole lot. There's maybe like a good handful, but I'm planning to use these in conjunction with my distress markers to have a good color variety. So that's pretty much it for my comparison. I'm sorry I didn't go into that much detail, but so something just I would like to point out is the way these markers roll. So the Zig Art and Graphic Twin has this little stopper thing that makes it stop when it's about to roll over. The Le Plume doesn't have anything though, so it'll just keep rolling. The distress markers have these really cool like notches on the tip and that on the caps, and that makes it stop rolling wherever it is. Like it just stops right away. It's not as like, for this one it would roll a little bit and before it stops, but for the distress markers it has a whole bunch of them, so it would just stop right where you put it. Okay, so this Recollections has this thing, so it's similar to the Art and Graphic Twin marker. This one obviously was replicated from the distress marker, so that's why it stops. This one does not stop rolling, similar to the Marvy Le Plume. And this one sort of does roll still, but because of the odd shape of the tips, it will stop sometimes, but it's not a guarantee. I've had this marker roll a whole lot more than like the markers with the stoppers on it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. My favorite markers have got to be the distress marker because I just love this really fine plastic tip. I have heard some artists say that the ink on the tip dries out really quickly, and I think that's because when you put this cap on, it clicks twice. So you just need to make sure that it clicks that second time for it to be secure, and I think that's the reason why people were having problems with this marker drying out. So yeah, but these two markers, I love the plastic fine tip because the Marvy Le Plume and this Recollection marker also has a fine tip, but I don't know, I feel like the metal would get, I mean the really tiny felt or whatever this thing is would get ruined a whole lot easier. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video.